one of the areas I specifically want to point out as a systems improvement is elementary science.
Initially, as we kind of looked at our current situation, it was science not being taught or learned on a consistent basis throughout the district.
There was a presentation on some state data that had come out, and our science scores just weren't where they needed to be. And a board member looked at our science coordinator and said, "What can we do? What can we as a board do to support you in improving student learning?"
We did some study about what was happening in some other places. What was the research out there about science ed and science teaching and learning? And through that and through the study we did of our own data and our situation here, we developed this plan. We looked at 5 areas of improvement.
Linda developed, from that conversation, she developed a 5-year plan along with involving teachers and other folks who work closely with science, and said, here's what we need to do. We're going to do hands-on science from a system level. We're going to guarantee that our science curriculum is implemented with fidelity district-wide.
We made ourselves a model of a wheel to think about moving forward, and those being spokes on the wheel. In the center of our wheel was inquiry, focusing on inquiry. We knew if we didn't work in all those areas, that we really wouldn't be able to move forward. So you can have the best curriculum in the world, but if you don't have the instruction that goes along with that, or you don't have the materials that can support that, teachers don't have the understandings that they need to be able to be effective in their teaching, it's just not going to move forward. So we really had to look at all of those areas at the same time.
Now, at the time, we probably had 15, 16 elementary schools. And so you multiply 6 grade levels times 15 elementary schools, you've got 90 different classrooms. And Linda's dream was that in each one of those classrooms, kids were going to be hands-on, in the dirt, playing with worms, growing, I have no idea, crazy stuff, building models, shooting things. I mean, that it was all going to be hands-on, and that as a result of that quality instruction, a result of students being active in their learning, actively engaged in their learning, owning their learning through science journals, through that quality instruction, that we were going to see scores rise.
Since we had already identified our current situation, which is the first part of kind of looking at a storyboard, is where are we now? And then we took our 5 areas and we started with just the bone diagram. And we took a look at where are we now, and then where do we want to be, and we did look at a 5-year out mark because we felt like that was, it was going to take that long to really change this system in the way that we wanted to, since we were looking at a complete evolution. We had all the input, but we had to lay it out to where we could really look at what we needed to do. So I tend to be a little bit linear in nature, and since that was kind of my area, I made a big grid. And so that's been kind of our map, our plan. And we have mapped out in each of the 5 areas and in each of the years, these are some of the actions that we're going to be taking. We developed a group we call the Science Leadership Team, with representatives from all parts of our district, because the change we made affected everything. It affected Copy Center and Plant Services, and we had to have more space, and just everything, every department. So we put together some key people from those departments, and we've had that team that advises us along the way. We developed units of instruction and used the research about less is more, trying to narrow down and be able to go in depth on a topic. And that's where we focused our training. But we also developed kits of materials, and then quite a bit of structure to go along to help teachers with our curriculum documents. But Our kits of materials, they really have, they include everything except water that the teacher needs. Living things, also we have critters that are also a part of this. So we developed a distribution for these tubs of materials, and we started with one the first year, one per grade level. Now we have our own warehouse that we house our materials, and we have a full-time materials manager and 2 half-time folks and a core of temps that put those together, send them out to campuses. They stay on campus for 7 weeks. They come back in, they're refurbished, completely put back together and back into rotation to go out the next 9 weeks to different campuses. It's more difficult to provide those engaging experiences than to get the science book out and read about science, which is also okay, but not the same as science. So we remove that barrier. You have the materials, and then we're working, but it's always, we'll always have this work to the training aspect, because we find the complexity growing. Our standards are have a little bit higher rigor now, so we're making modifications, and our teachers and students are ready for more, and not without quite a few bumps. And as you might expect, the critters, they can provide lots of problems, but we're committed to that. We're committed to that. Students need those experiences. We will have those experiences for students at Leander ISD.
There were some skeptics that said, well, that'll be fun, but will it really have an impact on student scores?
And in 2003, we had 55% of our students met standard on the test. And that was looking at a 75% correct standard. The state actually phased that in, but we always used the 75% so that we could compare apples to apples along the way. So we that's where we started, at 55%. We, along the way, have built up every year. It's a solid, very solid improvement. Last year, 93% of our students met standard. 55% are commended. So we went from 55% just meeting the standard to 55% being commended.
At the end of the day, the vision is, yeah, let's get the scores. But the vision is to ensure that students exit our system with the same passion for learning they had when they entered our system, without economics determining their success. That's another key point in this. This great quality instruction levels the playing field. And suddenly, it doesn't matter, rich or poor, whatever, you're hands-on, you're owning your learning, everyone's engaged in the same sort of thing. Well, guess what? We've seen our scores rise, and we've seen the gap narrow between our economically disadvantaged students and our non-economically disadvantaged students at the same time. And so, but again, whatever, those are just the scores. The quality of the instruction, the excitement for science that we have in our elementary classrooms is a sight to behold. It is an absolute joy, as just an outside observer, to walk into our classrooms and see what's going on in those science classrooms. And I attribute it largely to a systems change based on looking at some data and the board saying, what can we do to help? And then how that has all filtered throughout our entire system.